Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our third episode of our Leadership in Sports series. And the overall concept here is that there's a lot that business leaders can learn from elite sports organizations when it comes to how best to manage and motivate teams of highly skilled people. And it's my pleasure today to be joined by Christian Horner, who is the CEO and team principal of Red Bull Racing. And he's been in that position since 2005. And during that time has won 4 constructors and 4 drivers championships. So Christian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Good to be with you guys.
Excellent. So let me just jump right into this. So you're CEO and team principal of Red Bull Racing Honda. Can you just give us a little bit of your background and sort of how you ended up making this transition from being a driver in motorsports to being a team principal?
Well, I made the transition almost by accident because I started my career very much focused on being a driver. I raced from the age of 11 years of age in go-karting in the UK, and then winning scholarships with Renault and racing in cars. And of course, the higher you progress through the ranks, the more sponsorship and money you have to generate because you have to pay for your ride, all the way up to Formula One. And I managed to get up to the category, what effectively we know now as Formula 2. But my only way of doing that was to create my own team and take the sponsorship that I had and run that team and drive for that team. So I spent 1997 and 1998 driving for my own team, where I was effectively team principal and driver. And I got to the end of 98 and I thought, I'm okay, but there's others that are, at a higher standard than I am. I didn't want to go back into education or university. So I decided to give it a go of stepping out of the cockpit and developing that team in Formula 2, and went on to win the championship for 3 years in succession. And that brought me to the notice of Red Bull, who I was actually running some of their junior drivers before making the step into Formula One.
Fantastic. And this job of team principal is quite a unique one in sports, possibly with maybe some of the most diverse set of responsibilities. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the different, roles or say the different hats you kind of have to wear throughout the day?
Well, you wear many different hats. So from Monday to Friday, I'm running a high performance technology business and all the different faculties that composes of. So, we're at the cutting edge of technology. We have more than 400, designers, engineers, aerodynamicists, research and developers. Within the business, then we have the equivalent number in production and operations. So designing and building these Grand Prix cars, is very much, I perform a CEO role as on a Monday to Friday, and 23 race weekends during the year, I'm responsible for running a high performance, sports team. So wear a slightly different hat for that. There's obviously all the commercial side to deal with. There's the political side with the FIA, the governing body. There's the media. So there's so many different hats. There's the drivers to have to deal with. Every day is slightly different.
Yeah. So, juggling all those different responsibilities and staying sane and staying on top of it is, it's a challenge for many business leaders. I'm just curious if you have any mechanisms or processes you've kind of created over the years that work for you in terms of staying in the details, keeping everyone aligned in priorities, but like doing it in a way that scales for you and is efficient with your time.
I think the key thing is surround yourself with good people, so people that you can trust and that you can empower to get on with their job. I'm not an engineer, I'm a former ex-driver, so I'm not a qualified engineer, and I'm not a chartered accountant or anything, like that. So, but I think by getting the right group of people around you, empowering them, giving them the tools to do the job properly, removing the barriers and the obstacles that they may face, is a key element. I'm a great believer in, if you recruit the right people, don't tell them how to do their job, just give them, set goals and objectives, but empower them to deliver what their skill set is. And I think we're very fortunate here that we've built a great team that's had tremendous stability, which also is a key factor, over the past 10 to 15 years. And everybody knows what their role and responsibility and function is.
Yep. That stability is definitely useful, but I imagine you still are hiring new people now and then. And one of the things that's always been interesting for me is when you're thinking about hiring someone, interviewing them, how do you assess like their level of competitiveness and trying to figure out if the level of sort of how much they will personally care about winning will meet your bar before you actually see them working with you? Because you can't sort of ask someone like, are you competitive?
No, but I think you get a feel. You can see the look in people's eyes, if they've got that competitive, burning within them. Because working in Formula One, it's not a normal 9-to-5 job. It's a competition, and it's it's every day of the year. It never switches off, and we're up against some formidable rivals. OEMs, iconic manufacturers, likes of Ferraris, the McLarens, Mercedes-Benz, and we're a subsidiary of an energy drink, and taking on these huge entities. But again, it demonstrates if you get the right people and you empower those people and you get the right tools and the right technical partners and the right facilities, anything is possible. And we're now applying that also within our powertrain business, that complete blank sheet of paper, creating a powertrain group on campus, here in the UK, starting with a clean sheet, and that again is tremendously exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see how that part of your business turns out. One of the other things that I wouldn't say that a lot of business leaders struggle with this, but they're very curious about how to do it right and better, is around creating the right culture and creating a winning culture. And, I'm curious what you think are some of the things, if you think about how the people on your team interact with each other and what you sort of see on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the things that you always see on teams with winning cultures? And then what are some of the things that you almost never see?
I think the key thing is communication and sharing the same goals and objectives. I mean, within the business here, we're created with 22 different departments, and it's how those departments interact and work and support each other that is so vital. Because at the end of the day, there's one common denominator, and that's the car and how it performs and delivers. And I think that's everybody's focus and attention. And we're judged very publicly every other week from March to December. So, we've got a common focal point. And then I think the key thing within a winning organization is not to have a blame culture, to have a culture of openness and honesty that, mistakes are going to be made. Most important thing is to learn from those mistakes, to be able to be self-analytical. Even the races that you win, compared to the races that you lose, you're always learning. There's always something to learn. And I think it's that drive for knowledge and data and understanding that motivates everybody within the business. And at the end of the day, it's their car that if we win a Grand Prix, if we win a world championship, it's every individual's contribution that's required in order to achieve that kind of success.
Makes sense. Well, moving on to another subject that business leaders are always sort of trying to debate about is how to get your teams to embrace change in the right way. And, it's often said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And it seems like an obvious thing, but, very often in both sports and business, you see leaders who suffer bad, continuous bad performance and results from just being too slow to make changes. And especially when those changes involve giving up, long held fundamental beliefs, a little bit like the Who Moved My Cheese kind of book. I'm curious if you have any personal examples where you faced a tough decision that required whether to stick it out with the way we do it differently, versus making a fundamental change and just saying, you know what, this is not the right approach going forward?
There's constant, challenges like that, and you've got to move with the times. And I think the last 12 months has demonstrated more than anything that to us, that we've gone from being, extremely conscious of our own IP and giving very little access remotely to probably, only a dozen people that would have remote access, and everything having to be, controlled and centralized from within our facilities in the UK, to suddenly overnight giving your entire design team and the majority of your workforce the ability to work remotely. And we've had to embrace that kind of change, the technology that's allowed that, and our efficiency has matched our previous output, and obviously the proof of the pudding is the performance of the car. So I think just from the challenges of the last 12 months, you learn, and you've got to adapt. You've got to, go with, not be afraid of change. You've got to embrace change. You've got to embrace technology. Otherwise you become a dinosaur. And I think that's why, again, investing in youth for us and developing youth, and, with the graduate schemes that we have and apprenticeships, that again, that's our future.
Yeah. And on the engineering side, I imagine, you have to deal with a level of external change that a lot of companies don't have to deal with as often, which is the changing regulations. And that, some strategies and technical achievements can be fantastic in one regulation scheme, and then the regulations change and you have to kind of adapt. Like, are there the things you had to do to kind of keep the engineering teams looking at regulation changes as an opportunity versus, a struggle to fix things?
I think every regulation is an opportunity to shine, and that's the way we have to embrace it. Because, as you rightly say, every season, every one of these cars behind me has had a different set of regulations, and they're constantly being tinkered with, sometimes even in the season. And the more successful you are, the more likely something is to change to be to the detriment of your performance in order to create a more competitive playing field. And I think you've just got to roll with those punches and understand the impact that it will have on your car, and try and adapt and try and maximize the opportunity. So there's no point complaining about it and feeling sorry for yourself. You've just got to embrace it and say, okay, how can I turn this into an opportunity? Well, how can we extract an advantage? And of course, you'll come up with your own solutions. We'll then see what the other teams apply. And of course, you're always learning from others as well. So there's a huge amount of analysis we do on our competitors to say, okay, how have they interpreted this set of regulations? Can we learn from that? Can we take it to the next level? So you've got to be inward looking and outward looking, and you've got to embrace the change.
Makes sense. What about with having a hierarchy with clear responsibilities, having managers who can solve the problems of the people below them? Very useful. But then, there's always the challenge on the other side that as a senior leader who has managers and managers below you, you may not see all the problems, and that some problems that should be escalated may not get to you. So how do you think about making sure that you're sort of doing enough inspection of the details in the places so you can catch things before they get missed in being managed by the lower level people?
I think that's a cultural thing, though. I think that, obviously you try and set an example from the top. You have a set of, beliefs and morals in a certain way of this is the way that we conduct ourselves. And you expect, obviously, your management to reflect those ideals and those fundamental principles. And that then cascades through the organization. Of course, you can't be aware of every single issue, but you trust in the principles that you have, and the way that they're being implemented and interacted upon, that cascades through the organization. So, there's no surprises of what's expected from an individual.
Yeah, I mean, I find the culture takes care of itself when you have leaders on the team that are humble about mistakes and don't take it as personal attacks on them to admit they were wrong. That when you have people like that, that's when you end up with having these problems of the mistakes being hidden. So that culture is key.
So, I mean, human beings make mistakes. It's inevitable. Mistakes, where there are humans, it's going to happen. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's very much how you learn from those mistakes, how you react to them, how you analyze, what you got wrong, what you did well. And I think
Yeah.
that, particularly in Formula One, you're just learning every day, all the time, and that's what makes the business so exciting as well.
Another sort of parallel management challenge that I see with sports and business is how people deal with adversity and dealing with big kind of gut wrenching emotional losses, and that you see it go one of two ways on some teams, whether it's business or sports. That loss really causes the team to fall more apart. People leave, they do other things, or they never recover for it. And other people, they use that loss as kind of an energy to galvanize everyone to work together. And they look back and say, that low point, like we wouldn't have been at the high point now if it weren't for what happened immediately after we had that loss. Do you have any situations like that where you've sort of looked at a low point as, as really a very important fundamental kind of point in time that will motivate the team for the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's been numerous times. I mean, first of all, losing hurts, and if it doesn't hurt, then you don't know how to be a winner. And I think that we went through a period of domination, nowhere near the level that Mercedes have enjoyed recently, but winning 4 championships in a row from 2010 to the end of 2013. You get used to winning. Your expectation is winning, and then a big regulation change on the power units. Suddenly we're on the back foot, and from winning, world championships and 13, 14 races a year, suddenly we're the second team, and we're off the pace, and people's motivation, drops, because again, it was something that we couldn't control, that the engine was out of our, we're reliant on a supplier, for that. And so then you can sense that frustration, because going from a culture of, just expecting to be in contention at every Grand Prix you go to suddenly not being there, it focuses and it galvanizes in some ways. That's when you find out where your strengths are, in the strength of character of a team, to how do you respond and rebound from that and focus and channel your attentions on the things that you can control in order to get back into a competitive position. And that's why I think this team's been very, very strong. That, since 2014, when Mercedes have been a juggernaut that had dominated everything, we've picked off wins in every single season, bar one. We've been probably the most sustained competitor to Mercedes, during the hybrid period, and gradually we've got ourselves back, into a position to be able to challenge them, which is obviously our target, very much, this year, and that's taken 7 years to get back into that position. And there's not been a big raft or change in personnel. There's been evolution, as there obviously naturally is, but there's been blood, sweat, and tears to get back into that position, and the drive of everybody is to get back that winning feeling.
Absolutely. Well, one last question, since we're running low on time here, is in business and in sports, there's often a little bit of a conflict sometimes between going with the data-driven decision making, what the analytics tell you to do, and then trusting people's guts, feelings, based on their years and years of experience. And I imagine, whether it's in a race with things like race strategy, or when you're evaluating driving talent, you may get different inputs from those two sides of your brain. I'm just curious how you think about managing, balancing sort of data-driven and gut-driven decisions.
It is a matter of finding a balance between the two, because largely our decisions are data-driven. We're a data-driven business, and if you're in a race, we're looking at the degradation of a tire. What is the optimal pit stop? to complete a race. But then you do get variables like, the weather, for example, or, what your opponents, how they react to a certain, issue. And then you rely on experience, you rely on instinct. And sometimes it's good to challenge that data rather than being solely reliant on it. Sometimes it's good to look up to see if it's going to rain rather than relying on a satellite that's going to tell you it's going to rain in 5 minutes time. So it's finding that balance. And I think the use of experience and not being afraid to challenge the data is a positive thing.
It's great advice. Well, Christian, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a very, very busy man, but these are really great insights that you shared. I think our viewers really enjoy them, and appreciate it again. Thank you.
Pleasure. Hopefully we'll have a few more race wins this year, so you get a bit more of an idea what to.
Fantastic. Thank you.